welcome to Beauty in the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, I'm very excited about today's guest. Her name is Dr. Lauren Umstattd, and she's a facial plastic surgeon who grew up in Kansas City, then completed a majority of her training at the University of Missouri, where she graduated with honors. And while competing as a Division I gymnast, which we'll talk more about, she also did a fellowship with renowned facial plastic surgeon, Dr. Philip Langston in Tennessee. And he's actually the past president of AAFPRS. And then she returned to the Midwest, Kansas, where she's in the process of building out her own new practice from scratch. And of course, we'll talk more about that. And from what I can tell on her Instagram, Dr. Umstead is also a wife and mother of two, and we'll talk more about that, dear Lord. So Dr. Umstead, it's a pleasure to have you on Beauty in the Biz, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I'm a huge fan of your podcast and your YouTube channel, and so I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thanks so much. So we always start with, how did you become a facial plastic surgeon? What was your journey? Did you come from that family? What's that story?
So I always had an early interest in pursuing medicine. My mom is actually a drug rep or pharmaceutical representative for a drug company. And like Take Your Child to Work Day, I would, go with her and watch the whole process. And I didn't love like what she did, but I thought, oh, well, what the doctors do is interesting. So in middle school, I asked to shadow our family physician for a day on one of the Take Your Child to Work days. And I loved it. I loved like the pace of the day, the challenges that he saw every day, like the wide variety of patients that he would see. And he also was part of a private practice. So seeing him run a practice was a little bit interesting to me. So I'd say early on, I decided I wanted to be a physician. Obviously, that was a little bit challenging while being a competitive gymnast, but eventually got into medical school. And then I really think I heard a mentor once say, like, picking your specialty is so serendipitous, right? Because you don't get really equal exposure or equal mentorship in a lot of the different fields that are opportunities. So I think it really boils down to, in medical school, kind of what you were exposed to and who you were exposed to in those fields. And so I decided to pursue ENT. I loved head and neck anatomy. Again, the complexity, it was a little bit different every day. My biggest fear when I was younger was like to be bored. Like I never wanted to be bored during a day. So I thought, well, ENT has plenty of complex patients, plenty of complex different operative techniques, whether it's under the microscope, with the endoscope, open surgery, cancer surgery, pediatric surgery, And then during residency, I really fell in love with the cosmetic procedures that we did and those patients. And so it just made sense for me to do a fellowship in facial plastics. And here we are today.
So this is the interesting part that I find. After you're done with fellowship and now you're supposed to go out into the world and make your impact and make your spot in the industry. How in the world do you do that? So most of the surgeons go into the hospitals and work there for a long time or a little time. So what's your plan? Because I know you're building out this gorgeous building in Kansas. How, you're going straight into private practice, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I will say the building construction is a little bit delayed. COVID obviously has posed a lot of challenges worldwide for every industry, particularly construction, in terms of acquiring materials and getting labor secured for those materials. So we thought we were going to be open in December. It's now early February, but we're getting really close. They're actually going to start painting my sheetrock this week. Wow. So, and potentially start putting in some flooring. So we're like really close. I think, yeah, a lot of my friends are like, what the heck are you doing? Just going straight into private practice. But I think I've always had a tendency to want to be my own boss. In medical school and residency, I got a really good taste of organized medicine, both through the AMA, like the American Medical Association, and my state organization as well. And I saw like how many decisions were made about healthcare, not by the folks who actually practice healthcare, whether it's nurses, RTs, physicians. A lot of our healthcare industry is dictated by politicians and hospitals and executives that really don't have an intimate understanding of how those decisions kind of play out in real patient care. And so I always thought to myself, like, I just want to do my own thing. I want to be my own boss. I want to see patients like my way. I really didn't want anybody telling me what to do. And so I think fortunately I fell in love with a field, facial plastics, that lends itself to being able to make that happen. Because if I were reliant on insurance reimbursement, there's no way I could go out solo on my own and make ends meet.
So are you going to be a strictly cosmetic practice?
Yes.
Good for you.
Yeah. So I won't take any insurance. Again, I think my love for the field, like I love the cosmetic stuff, and from a monetary and investment standpoint, it's actually cheaper to create a building that's not CMS compliant when you don't have to follow Medicare and Medicaid guidelines. The EMR I chose it's basically what I charge. I don't have to like document level 2 or level 3 visits. It simplifies a lot of things, both logistically and investment wise, when you don't accept insurance off the bat.
Will you be doing surgery in your new building?
Yes. So the building is about just under 5,000 square feet. And it took quite a while to design it, but it's basically 2 entities. I have my clinic with 4 exam rooms, a lobby, photo room, my office, coordinator office, the staff work areas and lounge. And then I have a full ambulatory surgery center with a single operating room with a pre-op, post-op, a soiled and clean room, a med gas room, like the whole kit and caboodle. And in the state of Kansas, if you have an independent ASC, it has to be licensed by the state. So I will be licensed by the state, and then I'll also be accredited by the Quad ASF.
How big of a deal has this project been? Because I get calls quite a bit about surgeons who, especially with COVID, and they've gotten kicked out of the hospitals, and they have nowhere to go, and everyone wants control of their own life and their own schedule. So they're going to build theirs out, and they don't even know where to start. Like how's it been? Fellowship, like time-wise, fellowship was a great opportunity to start this whole thing because it's more of a country club lifestyle than residency. You work more of like a 9 to 5. And then these last few months, I'm not working in the traditional sense, but I'm basically getting everything ready for my office to open. So opening an ASC on your own, like I don't have a consultant, but I basically just read all the stuff myself. I'm in direct contact with the state. If I have any questions about, they approved all my plans. Like when we started, they have inspected it at 50% completion, and they'll inspect it again at 100% completion. So I've been in direct contact with the bodies that are helping me from a regulatory standpoint. I don't think it's innately difficult. It's time consuming, yes, but like the information is all there. And the governing bodies, whether it's your state or a third party, like they're willing to help you. You just have to ask questions and do your homework. That's fantastic. What is the ETA, the real one? When do you know?
I don't exactly know. Probably in about 2 months is what we're thinking. And that, I will say I've learned a lot in terms of construction. Not only is it the actual like bringing the building up off the ground and putting it all together, but it's also the city, right? They have to come out and inspect almost every week. So an example, a firewall has to be built between my ASC and my clinic, right? So that, God forbid, there's ever a fire, then it takes so long to burn through. Well, that firewall is basically like a sandwich. There's sheetrock and then another layer and another layer, another layer. So the city has to come out and inspect every layer before the next layer is put on. And so that's another limiting factor and another time kind of piece of the puzzle. So we're thinking 2 months, but it depends on the subcontractors. It depends on the city,
Well, how did you choose the location itself? I know you're from Kansas, but how did you choose Leawood?
So Kansas City lies right on the Missouri-Kansas line. And I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, which makes no difference. But and my husband is from just south of here. And so we always knew we wanted to be close to family, especially once we started having children. There was really no other place in the United States we wanted to be. And so I know that some surgeons will do a feasibility study and try to, do their market research. And for me, I wanted to be in Kansas City, like the greater Kansas City area. And then I said, we'll just figure out where I want to be in Kansas City. And then I'm going to be there for 30 plus years. So we'll make it work. You build it and they will come.
Okay. Is it a new development that you're in?
It is. We started looking for land when I was finishing my 4th year of residency, and we were pretty close. We were in Columbia, which is only 2 hours away. We just went out one day with a commercial realtor and we're looking at pieces. We looked at both build outs that were already existing and then just land. And we were presented, luckily, with a good opportunity with a piece of land right on a main drag. And it was about the right size for the building that I needed. It just all kind of worked out. We chose the southern part of Kansas City just based on medium home value. So it is a bit more affluent area compared to some parts of the city.
So you went with 5,000 square feet. So I'm assuming you're planning to scale this thing eventually, but to get started, what's your game plan? You're also very young and, and I'm older, let's just be frank here. It's very difficult to offer a facelift to a 60-year-old talking to somebody like you who's so young. Are you hesitant about that, or have you what's your game plan of your target market? And are you going to go with injectables first and laser? You're going to buy a bunch of lasers and then move into a bleph, or how do you have a plan for that?
I definitely have a plan, and I've been thinking about it for about a year, and I've listened to a lot of educational content out there, medical and non-medical. And I think right now, in the world we live in with social media and the ability to put yourself out there and let people get to know you before they come in, my patients will self-select. So anybody that's nervous about my age, my relative inexperience, me being a female, they're not even going to reach out to me, which is fine because it saves us both the time and money. I think while I am young and relatively inexperienced as compared to some of the folks in my community, I also think there's a big benefit to being fresh right out of training. I've basically spent the last 6 years reading papers, getting board certified. I'm all there, whereas someone who's in their 70s, might not be as on top of the most recent literature and techniques. And so I think patients will self-select. While I will offer injectables, neurotoxins, fillers, and then do some skincare stuff, that's not what I'm going to lead with. I'm a surgeon. I love operating. I've put in the investment to build out an ASC, and that's where I want to spend a lot of my time and energy. So in terms of marketing, I'm really not going to market a lot of filler and neurotoxin, and that's intentional. I know that those patients, there's different age demographics, right? So a lot of my good girlfriends who are in their 30s, they will come in and get all the non-invasive stuff. And I love that. But I think in really an interest and in terms of covering my cost, surgery is where I need to spend my time in terms of marketing.
For sure. Well, You've got to decide who your support team is going to be. Is your thought to have kind of like a med spa on the side as a profit center while you're building your surgical practice, or no? Just for now, it's just you and surgery.
So I think right now I've come to the realization that it's difficult to predict the future. I have built my building not for tomorrow, but I built my building for 5 to 10 years out. It's bigger than I need at first, but I want to grow into it. And I think the opportunities to grow and expand will come somewhat organically. I'm open to having other physicians operate at my surgery center. I'm open to having mid-level providers help me with fillers and toxins. I'm open to having an esthetician take one of my exam rooms full time. I've told myself that I can't force that. It has to be, I think it's going to be the right person, the right time that will just kind of appear. And that might be like a naive utopian view of how things are going to play out. But just like the building and me recognizing that I have no control over when it's going to be done, I have to recognize that the people that will join me in the future, I have really no control over that. I just have to assess them individually as they come to me. And I've been super lucky so far. I have not put out an ad for employees, but I already have my nurse, I have my patient coordinator, and I have an anesthesiologist that's going to be a 1099 with me.
Oh, kidding. Good for you.
And those are people that I've known and that are interested in working for me. So I've been very fortunate, and I just can assume that if I am myself and grow a great practice that people want to be a part of, both from a patient and employee standpoint, then it will grow organically.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. Although in today's world, in the old days, which I have found I'm saying that more often now, it used to take about 10 years to grow a nice practice. And now you've got about 10 months, and it's just not normally done like that. But there are shortcuts to scaling. I will just say one thing. If you were to bring on some non-surgical service providers, such as an injector, I would just make sure that they don't have the drive you have. They just want a nice, safe, stable place to hang out, and they bring a nice Rolodex with them, and that would help shortcut it. That would be my 2 cents on that. Are you going to be buying the lasers, or hopefully you're going to hold off on that, or just be very selective with what you choose?
I am not buying a laser to start. I think that might be a birthday present to my practice. Maybe at my 2-year birthday or something. I don't know. But again, I can't predict the finances. I have an understanding of what it's going to take to get going, and that it's going to be a little rough for a while. I'm not going to pay myself for a while. I don't know how long, but I think, again, you can't know everything right now. I don't have a crystal ball or a magic 8-ball. So I'm just going to invest in a laser when I can. And until then, I'll just refer people down the street because there are lasers everywhere.
Right. Just give me one big mistake that you've made so far. Let's say in the building of the practice, in the building of the building, just to help somebody else. Like, what's one big mistake that you wish you could have skipped?
Well, I haven't made. Okay, one big mistake. I ordered 4 exam chairs and 4 matching stools from a Chinese website. And I got notification. I ordered them last summer. And I knew it was going to take several months with the shipping and freight industry. And so, I was in detailed contact with the rep. I chose my fabric. I was going to save about 10 grand by ordering directly from this Chinese distributor. And I got confirmation that things had been delivered. And I was like, what? I never received it because I have a lot of things stored right now, obviously, until my building's ready to accept all the furniture and equipment that I have. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I have been scammed. They stole my money. I've been scammed. I was so dumb. Why did I think that I could just, take a shortcut, save 10 grand? So I filed a complaint with the website and said, I'd like my money back. They keep sending me fake UPS tracking slips and yada, yada, yada. So then I get in contact with an American company and I say, I need at least, because I have 4 exam rooms. So I said, well, I at least need 2 exam chairs and some stools. So can I purchase 2 exam chairs and 2 stools? And I would like it within the next month. Yeah. So then I get those. Well, then I'm out at my construction site one day and they have really no materials. They have like a locked, office. Mm-hmm. And I was wandering around in there trying to find my contractor. And I saw this box and I was like, it had my name on it. And I was like, Ethan's my contractor. I was like, what is this box right here? He was like, oh, I don't know. It's some stool or something and it had a bunch of Chinese print on it. And so, long story short, I had received the stuff from China. I just didn't realize it. And so I had spent an extra $7,000, which again, it hurts right now and I'm super early, but if you look at the marathon view 10 years out, $7,000 is not going to make or break me. It was just probably a learning opportunity for me off the bat.
It always is, it just is. There will be more for sure, but good attitude. Where does your husband fit into all this? I'm seeing him on Instagram, and is he helping you build this, or what's he doing?
He is my number one cheerleader. So, and not in a mean way, because I feel like cheerleader is synonymous with female, but so him and his family have been a part of the restaurant world for several decades, generation wise. And so they are very astute with investments, whether it be business, real estate, growing, scaling, taking risks. And so I think at an early point, 3rd or 4th year of residency, my husband saw that I had an interest in this. And so he kind of fed that interest. And so he's been a really, really positive influence in terms of my decision to do this. He helps me brainstorm about marketing. He obviously is a great co-parent. There's no way I could have had 2 children already without him. He's just the best. He helps in all ways. He's not going to work for me or anything, but we talk a lot about the business at nights and on weekends when he's able to.
Well, how helpful that his family came from, for sure, construction and business and marketing and how you do it. I mean, that's a great shortcut for you. So congratulations.
Yeah. And it's interesting, I didn't tell you early on, but I looked at trying to buy a practice here in the Kansas City area before I started building. And in their world, buying a restaurant is very straightforward, right? It's so many times earnings. Mm-hmm. And so it was a little bit difficult for them to wrap their head around this very arbitrary number that some of these surgeons put on their practices, especially when they don't own the real estate. It's what are you actually buying? Some old equipment and a handful of patients realistically. Mm-hmm. And so there was one gentleman that I talked to pretty in detail for a few months, several years ago now, about buying his practice, and it just didn't make sense. And so we passed on that opportunity, and that's when we decided to just go all in.
I've done a lot of work on that, the exit strategy of a plastic surgeon. When you're done working your butt off for 30 years, how do you walk away profitably? And frankly, that whole world has changed so much. You can't count on goodwill anymore. You can't count on that patient wanting to come back to another surgeon for surgery after, several years. That's a tough one. So I'll tell you what the secret is. You want to hear the secret? Yeah. It's to build the non-surgical side of your practice when the timing is right. That is a sellable, predictable revenue stream. The surgical side is not. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah. And to add to that, you asked me early on, how are you going to market yourself as a young, surgeon? And realistically, I think a lot of people need to recognize that obviously the patient goes to the surgeon, not to the practice. And so if an older male is retiring, the chances that their patients are going to want a young female, I don't meet the same cookie cutter. So it just made more sense for me to just start my own.
I I agree. So competitively, what's your scenario like over there in Kansas?
It's interesting. Do you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yes, the whole world does, don't they?
Yes. Okay. So he's one of my favorite people to listen to, learn from, get inspiration from. And so I don't really care about the market around town. I've been fortunate to meet several other surgeons in town. Like we actually have like a little couples date planned for 2 weekends from now, a facial plastic surgeon and a plastic surgeon. They just reached out to me and said, hey, let's get together. And so I met them. They showed me their office and they want to kind of have like informal journal clubs in the future. And so so far it's been very warm and inviting. There's several other people in the area and I might reach out to them just from a friendly standpoint, just to say, hey, but I didn't really put a lot of thought into like what they're doing. And because I think a lot of plastic surgeons really aren't good marketers when you compare to other industries. And so for me, I'm not competing against them. I'm competing against the companies that are out there that are great at marketing, like Lululemon and Apple. And like, I try to draw inspiration from things that are non-medical.
For sure. The demographics that you're going to go for, is there a plan for that? Like I would assume rhinoplasty is right up there for you. A lot of the plastic surgeons don't want to do rhino. So, perhaps, what is your marketing plan? Have you put that together?
Yeah, I think for me, marketing is 99.9% social media. The reason is because I'm able to put myself out there, people can get a realistic view of who I am, what my philosophy is, my approach to things. And it's basically free besides your time. I was kind of an earlier creator on TikTok and I have grown a large community on there. And even though my office isn't open, I probably get 2 to 5 inquiries on my website a week that come from TikTok. And it's interesting. It's the fastest growing age group on TikTok right now is 35 to 45-year-olds. But I will say the large majority of people that reach out on my website are younger females interested in rhinoplasty or buccal fat removal, chin implant, neck sculpting, not traditionally aging face, but just kind of tweaks here and there.
Yeah. TikTok, I'm a little torn on TikTok. They go after my 16-year-old, no, she's 15, my 15-year-old niece, and, they're showing her breast dogs and BBLs. And I'm not loving that idea. I'm not loving that they're even allowed to, market to such a young girl. But that's beside the point. Rhinoplasty and TikTok really go hand in hand for sure. I would really, you being a female surgeon, I would, make a big deal out of that. A lot of women like to go to women. It's comfortable for them. So I like that idea. And I would think that would be one of your big differentiators. Are there any other female facial plastic surgeons in your area?
There is one other. I recently reached out to her. I haven't heard back, but there's one other female facial plastic surgeon. I will say though, TikTok, it's interesting. Like in the words of Gary Vee, do not be your own judge of your content, right? Put everything out there, kind of put a little of this, put a little of that, and see what does well. Mm-hmm. So the things that do well, and of course, I always sprinkle in the educational content. So I have little blurbs about what is a brow lift, what are the incision options, what is a lower bleph, when would you get filler to the tear trough versus lower bleph surgery. But I also sprinkle in mom stuff. I'm a feminist and I'm very unapologetic about some of my female views and training as a female in the world of surgery. And so I would say my spicy videos usually do well, the ones where I kind of come out unapologetically and talk about things in a very real sense. Whereas some of my educational stuff is less interactive, but that's, even if a video only gets 200 views, the educational stuff is where my potential patients come from. So it doesn't really matter how many people see it or view it or like it. it's how does that translate into getting a potential patient?
For sure. And are you collecting? I know you said that they're writing to you on your landing page. Or your website. I highly, highly recommend you're at least getting from them their name, email, and cell phone, just in case, Instagram or TikTok shut you down, or you just never know, so.
Yeah. And I email them right back and I say, hey, thanks for reaching out. The office isn't quite done yet. I have a waiting list that I put them on. And so I do get their email and phone number, and I let them know that we'll reach out once we start accepting appointments.
That's all right. That's terrific. I want to talk about mindset with you because it's very unusual to have the courage to go straight out there into the world. Very unusual. Where is that coming from?
I don't know how to say this without sounding like not humble, and I'm pretty humble, but like I've never really failed at anything before.
Whoa. Really?
I'm only 33, so I've got a lot to fail at in the future. But, I was a competitive gymnast. Like it takes a lot of guts to get out there and compete solo some of the difficult tricks that gymnasts do. I got into medical school. I had a baby during residency. Like I've done a lot of things that are hard. And so for me, the hardest things have provided me the most gratitude in my life. And so this is just an extension of that, like obviously this is going to be a difficult next few years or next 20 years, next 30 years. Like nobody really knows what it's like to own your own practice until you do. Maybe I'll hate it. I hope I don't. But, yeah, the guts, I don't know. This is what I want to do. So I'm going to do it.
Oh, that's fantastic. How did you decide to have 2 kids in the middle of all this as well? I mean, that's a lot. You're doing a lot. Like you left fellowship in Tennessee, you came back to Kansas. I assume you had to buy a house or live somewhere. Then you have the kids. Then you have the practice. Wow. How's that going?
This summer was busy. I had our second child. We bought an older home at like the height of the housing market. So, and then we redid our entire home besides the master. So I oversaw all that. We had a general contractor, but I led that. So even though I haven't been working in the traditional sense, our life has been very busy. And I've been so fortunate to spend more time with our second son as an infant, because I missed a lot of that in residency. Like this is bad to say, but I don't even remember like the first few months of my first son's life because I was so busy in residency. It was like survival mode. And I don't know how my husband did it all. He's such an amazing partner. But to answer your question about having kids, I tell pre-meds and medical students all the time, there is no good time to have a kid, right? Everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. And I think students and residents try to plan like I'm going to have it like my research year, have it this time. Okay, that's not how it works. You don't like press a button and say, I'm going to get pregnant tonight. Mm-hmm. So I think you and your spouse or whoever you're having a kid with, you like have to decide when you're ready to become a parent and then just go because, and then just figure everything out essentially after that. I think, I have a little bit of regret in residency, not being more intentional with my program director in some of our conversations, regarding my maternity leave, but, things have since changed. Before I graduated, I approached him and said, the maternity leave policy here is needing some improvement. And I provided him some recommendations by the ACGME and what other programs were doing across the country. And so he let me rewrite the maternity leave policy. And then he made some tweaks and adopted it. And I also said, we need a breastfeeding policy because since we didn't even have one, I was so nervous to ask as a 4th and 5th year resident to scrub out of cases to go pump. And I felt like just having a policy on the books would allow future females to be more open to the idea in terms of planning once they come back. And so he said, yeah, write the policy and I'll put it in the handbook. So I think women just have to be intentional, not only about when they start having kids, but then also how it works into things after you have them.
Wow. Okay. Regarding the gymnast thing, Was that that had to have taught you discipline? What was that whole thing about? Was that had you done that all your life, and did you get any really good lessons out of that?
Oh yeah. I think sports, or really any organized activity is so important for children, beyond just school. So I was a gymnast forever since I was like 5. I started training 20 hours a week in the gym starting in 6th grade. It definitely gave me a sense of discipline, but also the sense of delayed gratification, working towards a goal, failure, taking risks. It's hard to put into words how gymnastics helped me become a physician and a surgeon, because it's just like innate to who I am.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's just so many things I became who I am because I was a gymnast at a very early age and into college. So it was basically my identity for years.
But isn't that interesting? All of those lessons you learned that early on in the gymnast arena completely come over to any other arena you went to. Good training, mind training, body training. Do you still work out now, or those days are over?
No, I do. I enjoy exercising. Obviously, the childbearing has, your body's just different after you have kids. So I don't do gymnastics anymore. That's a question I get. There's no way. It's too dangerous. I don't have those muscle groups or muscle memory anymore. But yeah, I enjoy yoga, walking, jogging, that kind of thing.
Okay. And what are you doing? I love talking about mindset, like how you think the way you think. I'm assuming your parents were very instrumental in that somewhere along the line, and the gymnast thing, I'm sure, was huge. But is there anything in particular, any one person, any mentor, any books, any conferences? Like, how are you thinking the way you are? Because you're definitely thinking differently and you're thinking big.
I would say one of the best books I've read in the last 5 years is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. He has a famous TED Talk, and I would encourage everybody to read his book. I think it just makes you look at what your next step is and being very intentional about that. I would say, so I forget the number, but on the Enneagram personality type, I'm a perfectionist and I'm a challenger. I think that my involvement with organized medicine early on really taught me how to question the status quo, constantly be looking for ways to improve, not just to follow suit with those that are in front of you or next to you, but really, again, back to why, why are we even doing this? There's got to be a better way to go about it. So I don't know if there's any one other thing in particular that I would attribute that to.
Wow.
But yeah, my parents are wonderful. I'm very fortunate to have them in my life.
I'd be thrilled to have you back in town, huh? With the grandkids.
Oh yeah. Well, it's all about the grandkids now, which is great. It's very fun to see them as grandparents.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for being on Beauty in the Biz. I will be watching your career. I can't wait to see your building, and I bet you can't wait till it opens up. And I'll watch you on Instagram as well. But thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Absolutely. And that'll wrap up this episode of Beauty in the Biz. If you would be so kind as to subscribe and give us a good review at Beauty in the Biz, that'd be super helpful. And then if you've got any feedback for me or questions, just go ahead and leave them on my website at catherinemaley.com, or you can always DM me on Instagram at CatherineMaleyMBA. Thanks so much. Talk to you again. Bye.